Abundance deep dive, day number 5. I said deep dive, right? Oh, man. I feel like my brain's turning into a little bit of mush today, mostly because of what we talked about in the deep dive. So it was nice for a change that Steve decided to go more of a grounded route. And I at first was like, okay, well, let's see what happens, because he's a little out there for a lot of things. So what does grounded mean to Steve? And I was actually rewarded with, it actually was something that I could literally sink my teeth into and I could get right off the bat. So I wasn't confused at all when he started talking. So essentially, it's figuring out what is our offer to the world through our work, through our relationships. What is it that we are willing to offer, and how do we receive? Are we receiving what we want? Are we receiving graciously? Are we receiving exactly what we are giving back? Is there some kind of balance, and is it a win-win exchange? So when it comes down to it, the 4 types of exchanges. So lose-lose, nobody wins, and it is a shitty situation, and basically it should just be avoided. Like, why would you set yourself up or set anybody else up to lose and make yourself miserable in the process? That doesn't make sense to me. Lose-win would be sometimes when we over deliver and we're not receiving enough. And I'll get to that in just a second. Win-lose, where we feel like we're winning, but the other person is losing. So sometimes situations where we're taking advantage of people. I personally think that mortgages are in this situation, but that's my opinion. And then there's the win-win, which is always the optimal, right? Does everybody involved feel like they're getting the best value? So the value that we give, we're actually getting back and we receive it. Win-win is always the goal, and I felt like when I set up retreats for myself and for my students that it would be a nice win-win. But I felt, as time goes by and as my results are rolling in, or lack thereof, I'm realizing that I set it up as a win-lose, where I'm trying to give them as much value, but they're not getting that. There's a missing piece and there's a disconnect somehow. So I can go back and relook at that equation and figure out what else to do for value, or I can just scrap it and start with a new offer. I realized that the retreats came from the previous solution, or the previous type, which was lose-win, where I felt like I was giving, and the students are just taking. And not from a bad way that they're taking advantage, just that what I was receiving wasn't filling my cup. It wasn't fulfilling my soul. It wasn't giving back to me on a really deep level. It was paying my bills and it was paying my bank account, and that's about it. So from a creativity, abundance standpoint, I felt very stagnant. Some of the classes became very repetitive, and there's only so many different variations that you can make from like the same 8 pieces. It's simple math, right? You kind of tap out and it reaches its ceiling, and that's what it felt like for me. So looking at the win-win for myself and how do I apply that to my business, part of it is I don't. And what happens now is that I've been struggling to find the win-win and struggling to find how can I give these people all of the value that it is that they need, and listening to their needs and fulfilling that without feeling like I'm sacrificing myself. And at the end of the day, I feel like I'm looking at it solely from the objective perspective that there just isn't a solution that's going to fill my cup. This type of work isn't filling my cup, no matter how I spin it. And that was a really hard pill to swallow. That was a realization that made me very upset, and just the realization too that I've let it get to this point where I could have stopped it a long time ago and kind of taken a different direction, but I don't know that I would have been happier with that anyway. So here I am. I've decided to essentially, potentially dissolve the entire business if there's no interest in moving forward with me with a more virtual and like instant, like direct shipment kind of strategy. If there's no interest in that, then the whole company will be kind of dissolved and it will take a massive shift and turn. If it does take the shift and turn of moving more virtually, then I still get to work on stained glass and I get to teach people virtually. So it'll go through videos and tutorials and potentially live Q&A, Zoom, I'm not sure, something like that, where I can help them and assist them and send them some supplies and we can still co-create. It'll just look and shift and be a little bit different. This work and looking at this was really actually quite easy for me. It was an easy yes. It was something that I instantly connected with, and we did a few polls just to see if the group was in alignment and if we were all on the same page, and surprisingly we were. So that was really cool to see. Something else that Steve mentioned is that the only real type of situation that you can scale for sustainability and for growth and serving as many people as possible is the win-win. So sometimes, you know, charging a little bit less, but you can serve more people ends up being a great win-win. You know, this particular abundance challenge is a great example. $97 times 600 and I think there's 47 of us, 647 people. That's a good payday, you know what, for 30 days worth of work, plus a little bit on the front end organizing it and then a little bit on the back end to package everything up again. It's a really great way that he can serve as many people as possible, and the fact that afterwards all of this content can be recirculated over and over again, and that $97 could be earned, you know, forever potentially. So I like that business model. It's something that I was trying to fit that into stained glass and it just never seemed to click, and that's where it came up. It was always a lose-win or a win-lose, and it was never a win-win. So at this point, we'll see what happens. I've put it out to my group to see who is on board with moving forward and who isn't, and then we will go through and serve and support as many people as we can while I transition and shift, and then my new life kind of starts. I'm committing to writing. I will be committing to speaking and doing more and more videos, so that will shift and look a little bit different. And I'm open to seeing what people are needing. And for the first time in my life, I'm not making decisions based on money. I'm doing it based on what fills my cup and what fills my heart and soul and what makes my soul happy, which for a first time in my life actually feels really good. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow and seeing what that brings. I think today is kind of a wrap up. I'm gonna type all of this up for everybody and can't wait to see what happens tomorrow.